A good life is a life built around fulfilling work, play, relationships, and lifelong learning. Welcome to Good Life Conversations, where we explore the stories and strategies of inspiring everyday people who are striving to create a life of purpose, meaning, and connection. Hi there, and welcome to another Good Life Conversation. Thanks for joining us. My name is Jay. I am the host and founder of Discover Year. Today's guest is Joel Hilchey. Welcome, Joel.
Hi, how are you, Jay?
I'm good. Thanks for coming. And so Joel and I have known each other for a number of years now. We crossed paths a few times at different educational conferences and events. And from where I sit, we have very similar lives, in fact, and we'll chat about some of our overlapping personality characteristics and the nature of our work. But Joel is the founder and CEO of something called the Beanstalk Project. He also delivers courses at McMaster University and does a host of other things. So he's a busy person and very talented person. So thanks for being here, Joel.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so we always like to start with the same question so that our students can get and our audience can get an understanding of what life looks like for a variety of different professionals. So if you can just tell us a day in the life, what time do you get up? What's your morning routine like? What's your work day look like? How do you wind down? What time do you go to bed? That would all be great.
Sure. Okay, so some relevant things. I have a family, so I've got a wife and three kids. The kids right now are age 8, and then twins who are 6. And I personally wake up at 7 most days. That's what time I set my alarm. My wife gets up before that, usually 6 or 6:30, because one of our kids also gets up at that time. But in our family, we made the agreement that because I'm not really a good morning person, I'm kind of a liability in the morning. So we agreed that she would do more in the mornings and I would do more in the evenings. So I get up at 7. I have a shower. I have breakfast, and then Kathleen, my wife, has usually gotten the kids ready for school. Somewhat, like she's given them breakfast and things, but usually I'm the one who takes them to school. Sometimes we walk. Lately, we're driving. And then I get home from dropping the kids off around 8:45 or 9. I actually have on my schedule a block of like Joel's health time from then until 9:30. So I try not to schedule anything before 9:30. And I hit that, depending on the week, maybe 50% of the time. And sometimes I would like to go for a run. Sometimes I juggle. Sometimes I just try to do some push-ups and convince myself that I'm moving my body instead of just sitting all day. Because at 9:30, generally, if I'm not presenting that day, I'm going to be in front of a computer screen for most of it. So on a presenting day, often I'm up even earlier than that, maybe 5 in the morning or 6, and off driving to the presentation site, and then doing a presentation. I can talk more about what that day looks like. But the more typical days right now is that I'm at home and I'm responding to emails. I am maybe having meetings with potential clients and ideating around like, what could we do? What kind of event could we create? Beanstalk Creative, which is what we call the Beanstalk Project officially now. Beanstalk Creative does careers events in education. So we're trying to find people, especially in the school boards, connect with them. Maybe I've spent some time thinking about, does our website look good? Recently, we've been kind of thinking about the registration process for events, and is the flow of emails when people click on the registration, is it intuitive? So we're actually thinking about the kind of client journey, and maybe we have a meeting about that, and we talk about okay, does this video look good? We've got a media guy on our team, so maybe I like review a media work in progress, check in with Chelsea, our manager, about any inquiries that have come in, anything kind of unusual. Eat lunch around noon, which I usually just throw together, find leftovers in the fridge. I don't know if that's a relevant detail. Afternoon is sort of the same. And then we pick up the kids around like 4, and they come home. And usually by 4, there's not a lot of productive time left around dinner. 4 till about 7:30 or 8 is kind of family time, which is usually chaotic. We're trying to pull dinner together, and we usually didn't plan it. But we have dinner and the kids trash the house, and maybe we play or try to squeeze in like a bath for the kids and fight with them about that. And then I like bedtime routines actually. So I'm usually on bedtime routines. We go up, get the kids through the bedtime routine, have a nice little snuggle. Malcolm goes to bed a bit later, but maybe from 8 till 10, I get more productive time. Sometimes that 10 p.m. goes to like 11 or midnight or later sometimes, because it feels like an uninterrupted block of time. And I don't seem to get many of those. But I'm trying to do fun things in the evening. That's one of my personal goals for the year, is to like ask, do I really want to be doing this tonight?
Mm.
And then I go to bed maybe like as early as 10:30. It's pretty rare that it's before then. As late as 12:30. I try not to be later than 12:30, because I operate better when I sleep a little bit more. But old habits die hard. So that is a typical day from wake up to go to sleep. And I usually have a coffee in the morning as well. That's once I get back from dropping the kids off. That's become a nice part of the routine.
Sounds
Did I give
familiar.
an overview?
That's good. Yeah, I connect a lot with that, especially the bath time and bedtime challenges.
Yeah, gosh, it's lovely, and also like just go to bed sometimes, yeah.
And what do you, I was interested to hear that you're talking about productive time uninterrupted in the evenings, and my assumption was that you were talking about work, but it sounds like you're talking about a different kind of productivity. What are you often doing in that time?
Gosh, so by default, working. So being self-employed, hooray for us. I thought it meant that originally that you could work when you wanted to work, but actually it usually means that you work when there's work to be done. And unless you've got really clear boundaries, that's pretty much always. So in the evening, I do often work, but I also have some other hobbies. I do like to juggle. I don't do that much in the evening. Um, I sing in a quartet, like a barbershop quartet, and sometimes I like to arrange music for us, or just I'll mess around with some arranging. Um, Maybe I get out for a social thing, although that, unless it's pre-planned these days, is pretty rare. So but usually there's something in the evening. I just try to say, do I want to do this tonight? Maybe I'll watch a movie or a show, maybe reading a book. But if I get into a book, I got into Harry Potter recently, and once I'm into a book, I like read all the time, and so I have to sort of plan, if I'm going to start this book, am I prepared to be like much 20% less productive than the previous month, as I finish this book, because the work time in the evening I just start reading, and then I don't know. So uh, yeah, then I don't get back to people as fast as I should.
I connect a lot with that, and we were chatting before we started recording about our conversation recently about our overlapping experience of understanding our ADHD as adults, and the
Yes.
hyper focus is very relevant to me as well. And in fact, yesterday and this morning, our son is into Legos, and the hyper
Uh,
focus, and I see it in him, and I'm the same way with the book. If I like it, I
yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe we can come back to that, but I think that's an interesting note about, hey, entrepreneurship. It's might sound real sexy at the beginning, and sometimes it is, but also it's often not exactly what people expect. So can you tell us? You
Oh
mentioned
yeah.
presenting, and we didn't give a real good definition of the
Sure.
Beanstalk Creative, and what does that mean? What do you do?
So uh, years ago, I studied engineering, and I studied engineering physics, and I was also a juggler, and I got a corporate job, not juggling, doing database stuff. And I looked around and realized I was surrounded, to my eye, by people living for the evenings and weekends. And I was probably projecting because that's how I felt. It was probably a great job for a lot of people, but I just felt like this is not what I want to be doing. It's not my skill set. And I
And
lasted.
sorry, Joel,
Yeah,
when you say they were living for the evenings and weekends, people might not understand what you mean by that.
oh,
What do you mean?
sure. People showing up at work only for the paycheck, spending 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day waiting for it to end, so they can go home and watch TV. And I didn't want that to be my life. I think there's something to be said for that. I don't think everybody has to work for the mission of it. People talk about like, oh, you got to follow your passion. Like, maybe. Also, some people really crave stability in their lives, and you could work for the money, which gives you the stability and potentially the lifestyle that you want, so that when you're not at work, you get to go and live the life that you want. Uh, the risk of that is that if your work expands to fill so much of your life that you don't have any time to live the life you want, then you're sort of, now you've got maybe a big bank account, but not a lot of fulfillment. The risk of the mission filled life, though, is that because you feel integrated with what you're doing so much that you just work all the time and you forget about a life outside of work, if there is one to be found. And so I don't know which is best for, each individual, but it's something I don't think we talk enough about. It's like, what is your goal of work? What's your philosophy of work? Okay, so that's the sidebar of what I was doing. I was doing database stuff, and also got the opportunity to speak at a school. I was involved with a group called Engineers Without Borders, cool group in university that believed that engineers could solve problems that really mattered in the world, could help the most vulnerable people. And I thought, oh, that's a cool mission. I met some neat people with that, and started giving high school presentations about water and food. And teachers saw me and said, oh, you're really good at this. You could be a high school teacher. And I thought, oh, that's amazing. But no, I'm going to be an engineer. And so I kind of ignored it. And then I got asked to speak at a student leadership conference and did that. And another speaker in the audience said, that was really good. You could speak professionally. I was like, what is speaking professionally? You can get paid to do that? And I'd never heard of this before. But it turns out that people like authors and trainers and other experts often get asked to go to events or conferences and share what they know with other people, and help people do what they do better. There's this whole like expert industry out there, which is really amazing. And on the surface, it seems like you get paid a bunch of money to go and like show up at an event and share your expertise and laugh with people, maybe, hopefully, if you're good at it, and have some fun for an hour. And from an hourly rate, it's a great hourly rate, but you don't do it every hour. You do it maybe not even every day, in fact. So I had this realization after 3 hours, a big long commute in the rain one morning on buses. I looked around the office and said, I don't want to be here. And I typed up my resignation letter. I had this suggestion that, I could do this speaking thing in my mind. I had a couple $1,000 in the bank because I managed to graduate debt free. I was really fortunate in a lot of ways, but I also worked every job I could during university. And I had some freedom to say, I'm going to do this speaking thing and take a chance on it. And I said, I'm going to be a speaker, and quickly got a job as a trainer working for another organization, going into schools and talking about the 7 habits of highly effective people, highly effective teens. And that was really cool. So I got to go into schools and practice a lot and get better at what I was doing. That was 17 years ago. Along the way, we started Beanstalk, which was my own content. And I would get asked to go to leadership conferences or do high school assemblies or educational events. And I've developed philosophy on education. I went back to a master's degree in engineering and environmental engineering, but really I wanted to learn about sustainability and community and how we could solve problems to make the world better. And now my main topic personally that I get to talk about is about fun, because I really believe, and there's good research to show it, that we do better when we feel better, which is kind of intuitive, but it's also kind of counterintuitive because a lot of people think work and fun are like opposites. And I don't think that's true. And they think, if we're going to accomplish something serious, we need to get serious. And I think that that's not always the best approach. I think if you can make something fun, you like unlock this really fast path to progress. Okay, so that's a long-winded story of how I got to be calling myself a speaker and saying, like, you can go and hire me to come and speak at your event and talk about how we need to be better with culture, or how managers can create a magnetic culture where people thrive and their strengths come out. Um, and fun turns out to be the thing that I promote. I do this in a weird way. My style isn't just to like have the research, although I do have the research, but I juggle and I play with mouse traps, and I get inside a very large balloon as a finale thing. It's really weird. It's like this weird combo of circus and comedy and philosophy and research, and it's a lecture. It's not a lecture. It's a presentation. It's a performance. And I've been really fortunate to create this unique thing for me. And so sometimes I get asked to go to events and do this for people. And on those days, I wake up, or maybe I have to fly the day before if it's far away. And I stay in a hotel or whatever and wake up and show up at the conference. And it's pretty cool. And I'm like a mini celebrity. And then I'm also an outsider. So this is some of the duality of this. I get to be the person on the stage, but then they all go back and get on with their lives. And I get in my rental car and drive home on my own and go back home to my family. So people like me and like what I do, but I'm not like a member of their team. And I'm a bit of an outsider. So presenting is something I really enjoy, and I'm really good at it. I feel awesome about this. I've worked on that skill over the years. But that I didn't want to do that all the time either. So Beanstalk became sort of this side by side thing with my own personal presenting. And with Beanstalk Creative, we started to do career skills building in schools, particularly with this one program called the Specialist High Skills Major Program. And what people liked about me, I realized wasn't unique to me. And so I started to invite other facilitators to come and do the content that we had created. And now we've got a team of about 10 facilitators, and a couple kind of coordinator, manager, media people who coordinate this. And so our team last year did like more than 300 presentations, which is way more than I could have done personally. And so that's something I'm really proud to have created also. So my two paths are sort of this like Joel Hilchey presentations sometimes on the side, but more than that, like CEO kind of thing, which didn't feel like I was a CEO. It just like I started this thing and then we hired people, and then I guess I was the leader of the team. It's a funny thing coming to terms with a title. But that role was like, what does the team need? What do we need to do to create more opportunities, not just for me to present, but for other people to present also? Whew, there you go.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and I think it's interesting to hear. The next question I'd love to ask you is, so understanding, you've already touched on some of the benefits and the cons, and I love the fact that you're presenting this idea of thinking critically about and finding out, are you someone who will prefer some stability in a very simplistic way, and
Mm-hmm.
know what you're getting and have your outside life that you can do however you want, or are you someone who really wants to be passionate, deeply passionate, and do it yourself and have control?
Mm-hmm.
So for you personally, what are some of the pros and cons really quickly of running
Mm.
your own company?
Yeah. So the pros are that I get to make most of the decisions, or I get to make lots of the decisions that impact me. Um, and I don't feel like I'm micromanaged. I don't feel like I've got a boss kind of breathing down my neck. But on the other hand, I'm still subject to all the people who hire me. So the self-employed people who, have 100 clients in the year might say, I don't have one boss, I have 100. They all have different expectations. So that's a con where I have to like work through all the different expectations and try to meet that. A pro is that the earning potential is pretty high of having my own business. A con is that the volatility in that income is pretty high. If I have a good year, I do well. If I have a bad year, gosh, there were years when I dipped into savings, especially through the pandemic when education and presentations shut down. We dipped into our savings to like keep enough capacity in the business to keep it going. We A con of being like a presenter and a keynoter is that our reputation really determines how well we do. Like I'm only as good as my last presentation in some ways. And so as we have, as we build out our team, we have to really think, okay, we're bringing on a new facilitator. Would we bet our next presentation on that person's performance? Would they would whoever hired us for that gig, would they recommend us? And I feel that pressure. I feel like, oh, if we send somebody out there, our whole team's reputation is on the line. Um, I love having the flexibility in my schedule. I think a lot of workplaces are building in more personal flexibility, but yesterday afternoon, I had a chat with my wife at 2 p.m. for an hour. We talked about the kids and we talked about our relationship. And on a regular 9 to 5 work day, I don't know that you could just like take an hour and have, sort through some family things with your spouse or significant other. Um, I have flexibility to start at 9:30 and say, you know what, I'm going to go for coffee this morning with a friend before I show up. Don't book me before 9:30. But we get to choose our schedule on the team when we check in. We get to choose vacation time. Con of that is because I don't have anybody saying you don't have to be there at this time, like we're done working at this time, I feel like I'm never really done working. I haven't been able to take a good vacation because I didn't build a business yet. We're working on this where I'm free of decision making. So if I go away for a couple days, that's usually fine. But by week number 2 on vacation, we try this even in the summer where there's not as much happening. Now the team is feeling like we can't do stuff without Joel here. We need Joel to make some decisions. And so even though I'm away, I'm like not really off. I'm not really on vacation. So I have a friend who got a job offer with a big computer chip manufacturer, Intel, I think at one point. And he has a PhD and they offered him a job that's very well paying. But they got 3 weeks of vacation per year. And 2 of those weeks he was going to be on call because if the production line goes down, I don't know, they measure downtime in like, millions of dollars an hour or something like this. And you need your expert on that job. So, and he turned down the job because he said, I want to have more freedom in my life than that. And I feel like I'm kind of stuck in that situation a little bit where I'm indispensable. Hooray, I get to feel great about my contribution. And I'm indispensable. So I can't just like take off when I want to. There's often things that it feels like I need to contribute to.
Yeah.
I know those are some of the things, but on balance for me, the life flexibility and autonomy definitely wins out.
Yeah.
I think part of the like 9 to 5 experience for me, maybe I just wasn't in the right job because I didn't feel like, this is my skill set and this is my contribution. But for me, that was like really soul sucking really quickly. That's why I only lasted 4 weeks. And I was on vacation for one of those weeks on the corporate world. Like it wasn't, it didn't take long at all. And maybe that's the transition. I don't know. We could talk about the ADHD thing. I didn't realize it at the time, but one of the things that I have learned about the ADHD brain is that it's really good at doing things it wants to do and really bad at doing everything else. And that makes me really sensitive to things that I didn't choose to do that I don't find fun or meaningful. And I realized, that's like a superpower. I'm really sensitive to that. And back in that corporate job, it was not fun and it was not meaningful. And there have been parts of my current job that are not fun and not meaningful. And I realize how hard they are. So that's been a good learning for my own brain anyways. I don't know if you want to go into the ADHD stuff. We can if you like, but
well, yeah, I mean, it's, and I would invite students for when you meet with our Discover Your students anyways to, explore that more with you if you'd like, but I certainly relate, of course, and to all of what you're saying. And I think the important message that I'm extracting from this is, and I see a lot of students who kind of come into the adult world with this idea of what the right career path is or what the right opportunity. Do they want more stability? Do they want more freedom? And people are often
Yeah.
influenced by their parents and their immediate surroundings. And the message that I'm hearing from you that I also want to reinforce is you got to find out for yourself. You're never going to know
Yes.
until you experience these things and are thoughtful about them. So explore.
Totally. Totally. That's if this is one of the things that Beanstalk is like promotes very firmly. It's almost like a an ethos of career exploration. It's like if the standard career advice is follow your passion. Um, Number one, we don't wake up suddenly passionate about a thing we've never experienced. Nobody wakes up never having welded before and going, I love welding. That is my calling in life. Nobody does that. You have to try it before you can know. Um, but I think the number two for that is that we don't know what we like until we try it. So we don't become passionate without trying things. But even if we think we like a thing, the experience of doing that thing is often different than our idea of what that thing is. When I became a speaker, one of my mentors at the beginning said, speaking is a really lonely job, right? And I said, what do you mean? Like, you're with people all the time. He's like, yes, but you're the outsider all the time. And so you can speak for 1,000 people, but you're getting back in that rental car by yourself. I was like, I see. And, a band, if you want to be a rock star, like you imagine the band on stage, doing the guitar solo. What you don't imagine is the hours of rehearsal on your own in your bedroom or in the studio, like figuring out that thing and crafting it, and the negotiations with the venue for how you're going to do it, and the load in time and the load in and load out process, and showering in a 7-Eleven bathroom or something. Like, I don't know, all of these things that you don't imagine on the surface of a job um, are actually there. You find those things out by trying the job and going, oh, this is what it looks like. And you'll realize what you like from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes, follow your passion, but explore explore stuff, try stuff that you don't think you would like or that you don't know about in order to find your passion. Otherwise, we just do basically the limited number of things that we see in our lives.
Yeah.
We kind of bump into them.
We talk a lot about the term that we use is prolonged exploration, and not
Mm.
which is the opposite of plan and implement,
Huh.
which kind of comes out of the research. And I see a lot of people planning and implementing, but what are you planning and what are you implementing and how is it going? Um,
Yes,
so it's I think validating certainly for people like you and I who have tried a lot of stuff, but others as well, to know that there are actual concrete identifiable benefits to trying a bunch of different stuff in the
totally.
process of figuring out what you are passionate and what you care about.
Yeah, totally. Well, maybe add in something here as well. One thing I see is that many people like a lot of different things. And so some people know, well, I'm not going to do medicine because I have no interest in that. But gosh, I really like sports. I really like working with my hands, or like machines or something. I don't know. Like, what should I do? I don't know which one to choose. I could go into maybe manufacturing, or I could go into like sports marketing or something. And one idea, like a piece of advice I would have, is consider combining your interests into some weird Venn diagram niche, like sports equipment manufacturing, maybe. Like if those were your things, you like health and public policy, why not like public health? Uh, a lot of times, students, but even young professionals, will say, "Well, I don't want to go too narrow because that will it'll cut off all these other options. I don't know for sure that I want to do this thing. So maybe I should just keep it general and say, well, I like something about health. And I think there's benefits to keeping your options open, but I don't think that going niche on a thing limits people as much as they think it will. Um, an example sometimes I share, I met a guy in university who was interested in space generated solar power. Is the idea of like putting solar panels up in space and using that energy to somehow power stuff on Earth. Now, there's a bunch of problems with this challenge, like how do you get the energy from up there to down here? But there's benefits to it because we don't have this atmosphere that takes out a bunch of the energy. So you can get more energy by going to space, and it doesn't bother anybody to have solar panels up in the sky. Um, but this on one scale, if you're like, I'm interested in space solar power, you might think nobody gets a job doing that. Like most people have never heard of that or thought anything about it. And it's true that there aren't thousands of companies that do it, but there are tens of companies that do it. And if one of those companies were hiring and you had a selection of candidates who are interested, like if one person says, I'm interested in energy in particular, I want to do something with energy, and another person says, I think I want to work in space generated solar power, which person is the company going to go with? They're like, this guy really wants to do exactly what we're doing. I think there's huge benefits to being selected. But then even if you changed industries, I think you could still make the case that what you learned working for a couple of years in space generated solar power could be applicable somewhere else. Maybe you think about lightweight materials or transfer of power, or I don't know, whatever the things, I don't know the industry. But all the things that you learn in one industry, or many of the things, could be totally transferable to somewhere else. So that's, again, a long-winded way of saying, don't be afraid to go specific on something and explore what that is for a while, put in some time, and then see where you want to go next.
Yes, agreed. And I think people are often lacking the skills and ability to and confidence to articulate what they've learned in a previous position that will help them in the next position. So that's, I know, something that you probably talk a lot about, and that's a big part of what we do at Discovery, is helping them articulate those things.
Yeah, there's a neat skill. I think executives have this skill. I was talking with a friend who did a PhD and ended up starting his own company. They do like medical biomolecules. So you can spit in a tube and it'll tell you if you've got COVID or something, and it'll tell you quickly. So they manufacture COVID tests, but they're also going to manufacture other types of tests. And there's huge potential in this like personal diagnostics world. So he's doing this, and I was asking him, like, what do you see in your employees? Like, what skills do they have? And you as the CEO, how do you think differently than what other people are thinking about, or how other people are thinking? And he talked about being able to zoom in and zoom out at will, sort of. It's easy for people often to get stuck in the weeds and do the very fine details, but when you're in the fine detail work, you can easily lose sight of the bigger picture and the context in which you're doing that work. And similarly, if you have a big picture but have no concept of the details, then you end up feeling like you're sort of airy-fairy, disconnected from the practical implementation of this stuff. And I think executives have this ability to both like understand enough of the details and get into that when they need to, that it really makes sense to them, but then also zoom out and see the bigger context really easily, or at least they take time to do that. And I think even if you never become an executive or a CEO of something or a manager, I think that this would be a great skill for people to practice doing. What does my life look like today? What am I working on today? But then, like, could I zoom out with to a monthly perspective? Well, what's going on this month? Well, what's going on this year? And then maybe even like in my lifetime, what is my life journey looking like?
Yeah.
I think if you can see those details, okay, what am I doing today at this job? Well, how do those skills relate to other jobs as well? You can do it on a personal or professional level, but this ability to both zoom in and zoom out, I think, is a really valuable skill for people.
Yeah. And I would just add to that the ability to hold both those ideas, both the minute detail and the big picture in your mind at once without getting overwhelmed or too anxious.
Yes.
Many have talked and written
Yes.
about this, but the idea of being able to hold those two things in your mind and be patient with them and know when to go for one or the other is another really important skill for managers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. In many ways, that feels like the sort of wisdom that comes with time. I feel like it's the thing I feel like I'm lacking a lot of the time. I'm like, well, I see it all, but like I don't know what to do with it. Like what path should we take? I could see a bunch of different things we could do. And I guess that's a skill. I should feel good about that. Uh, but knowing which one to do, it's very different than the world of school where you're trying to get the right answer. And I care about creativity a lot. A pal, Brandon Love, and I wrote a book on creativity called Brain Sprouting. And really the concept of it is like uh, school teaches us to find one right answer a lot of the time and try to get the right answer. But most interesting problems in life don't have a right answer. They've just got interesting answers. Well, this is a possibility. This is a possibility. You know, how should you change the Discover Year curriculum for next year or over the next 5 years? That's an interesting question, but there's no right answer to it. It's like, well, we could do it this way. We could do it this way. We could scale it back like this, but add emphasis here, or we could do the opposite of that. There's pros and cons and drawbacks and advantages, and I feel like being comfy with examining all those different angles actually is a skill, because if you feel like life is a test and I'm either passing or failing, I'm getting it right or wrong, and if I didn't achieve the thing I wanted to do, then it's like a big failure. That's a lot of pressure, and it also is not very reflective of reality. Like there are tons of ways to go through life, and I don't know that we always do a good job at promoting. There's not a best. There's just what's best for you right now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And yeah, of course, unsurprisingly, you're talking about a lot of the things that we explore with our students too. And I know we're kind of at the end here, and I mean, there's a million more questions I'd love to ask you, and I'm sure the students will have some. And one of them might be, you did, we don't have to answer this now, so we're running out of time, but you did these 2 degrees in engineering, and now you're a juggler. To be
Yeah.
simplistic, most
Yeah.
people would say that was wasted. What is your opinion? Was it wasted or not? And what did you extract from it? And I think students would also be really curious to hear about how do you run a business with ADHD, and your family. We didn't even get into it, and we didn't even
Yeah.
talk about some of your failures, but that's something that we often talk about too. So I'm sure the students would be curious to
Oh
hear some of
yeah.
those.
Gosh, like I can in a sentence, I do feel that the engineering degrees were worth it. If I could go back, even knowing what I know now, I would still do them. Um, because it taught me a problem solving skill set. And now I just get to solve problems of people rather than problems of like technical molecules and
Mm,
fiber optic communications and stuff. I get to solve problems of on a different scale. I like solving problems of people. I was always interested in kind of like pop psychology too. So that's what I would read about when I was interested in just reading for fun. And running a business with ADHD, I mean, I could share the specifics. I won't, but I was only diagnosed during the pandemic. And what I would say is like the more aware you are of your own weaknesses, the better you'll do. I was pretty high functioning through school. I wasn't the kid who couldn't sit still and like couldn't pay attention. I could pay attention to very well. I did great in school. But for me, it was when the external stimulus was too high. It was like I got overwhelmed during the pandemic. Now there's 3 kids around. There's too many problems to solve at the same time, and my brain couldn't make sense of it anymore. And for me, I just got angry, and it was like I wasn't showing up as the person I wanted to be. And my team, being able to call what I have ADHD helped them realize, and my wife realize what my limitations would be or what my weaknesses or challenges would be, and it helped depersonalize a lot of those things. Doesn't make me a bad person to say if I don't write something down, I'm probably going to forget. That's just a thing. Probably most of us are like that on some level, but like all of us need systems to help fill in for our weaknesses, and sometimes those systems are like pen and paper. Sometimes it's calendars. Sometimes it's vision boards or goal setting pages or to-do lists. Sometimes it's other people in our lives where we say, oh, I always rely on my wife for this, and we've got a good thing going here. Or I rely on this other team member for this thing because I know that's not my strength. So how do you figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are? You explore and you try stuff. So take a year and discover what you want to do and how you show up.
And I appreciate that too, and exploring, and thanks for your honesty. And I think a lot of students will connect, and I would love for you to perhaps explore not only like how this presents challenges, but because for me the advantages for you are very visible, even at a
Yeah.
distance, of having a brain that works that way. So and similarly for myself, I see the advantages and the
Yeah.
challenges. But I'd love for you to, yeah, just to wrap up, Joel, thanks. Again, and there's so much more we could chat about, but we like to end with, this is called Good Life Conversations. The aim is to help our students think about life in a broader spectrum rather than just work or just school or just
Yeah.
travels. What would you offer to students coming into a, sometimes intimidating world as an adult, as an early adult? What would you offer them as advice to help them create a good life?
Mm. Um, for me, I often, uh, so I don't know if this is normal for people. I assumed it was normal to do this. Every 3 months to 6 months to 1 year, I actually kind of sit with a piece of paper and write down like, how are things going? What are my goals? What do I want my life to look like? I sort of do a high level zoomed out reflection. Is my health good? What are my finances like? Um, what am I yearning for? What do I wish I could do more of right now? My relationships. I just like to find these models and think, well, who's in my social circle right now? And am I investing in the right people and the right relationships? I I allow myself time and space to do these sort of high level reflections. And I think that would be kind of my big advice, to say, follow your instinct when you do that. Is like, if allow fun to be a bigger motivator for you. People say, oh, I don't have time to do this. I mean, I would love to go and join a racquetball club or something. I'd love to go and travel to the thing, but I don't know if that's a wise choice. I If you think it would be fun, do that. You'll be most motivated and you'll take the most from the experiences that you're really yearning for. So listen more to yourself. Take time to think about for yourself, what do you want your life to be like, and and use that to like help block out a few of those other people's messages or those societal messages about what life should be like. Um, and I need to do this all the time also. And it's hard because from the time we come into this world, everybody's telling us what to do. And we've all got ideas and hopes and dreams. And often those hopes and dreams are not really our own. They've infiltrated our mind in some sort of unexamined way. And that's a lifelong journey, I think, to like continue to realize, oh, what did I expect about this? What do I expect of myself right now? And then realizing that it's all made up, and we can choose what we want to make up.
I love it. A big part of the reason we're doing these episodes is to help people understand that life is complicated, and you need to kind of be mindful throughout. So it's a journey
Yes.
that goes well beyond turning 18. So
Oh, gosh, for me, life has gotten more satisfying as I've gotten older. I'm 41 now. Statistically, people are less happy when they have kids, and I would say on a day-to-day basis that is true. I'm not quite as joyful and light as I was before I had kids, um, but there's a different well that's fuller now, and I have this whole other range of experiences that I value in a different way. So there's no right answers. There's just a lot of possibilities.
well said.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks for
This
doing
is
this.
this has been great. Have a great day, Jay.
You too. Thanks everyone for tuning in to this Good Life conversation. We look forward to seeing you at the next one.